What if I told you that the story of modern Israel didn't begin in 1948, but in the ancient deserts of the Middle East, written thousands of years ago, hidden in sacred texts that have outlasted empires? There's a reason the name Israel stirs emotion across the world. For some, it's a political lightning rod. For others, a symbol of faith, survival, and divine mystery. But beyond the headlines and history books lies something even deeper, a spiritual narrative stretching back to the dawn of civilization, one that seems to echo through time itself. Many see Israel as a modern miracle, a nation reborn from ashes after centuries of exile. But what if its very existence was never an accident? What if it was foretold long before a single stone of Jerusalem was laid, written into the divine blueprint of history? You see, the story of Israel is not just about land or lineage. It's a story about a promise, one that began not with a king or a prophet, but with a wandering nomad named Abraham. According to the ancient scriptures, God made a covenant with Abraham, a divine agreement that would ripple across generations, shaping not just one people, but the destiny of the entire world. But here's something that might surprise you. God's promise to Abraham wasn't meant to exclude anyone. In fact, it was first intended as a blessing for all nations. It's only over time, through choices, struggles, and divine purpose, that the covenant became focused on a single line, through Abraham's son Isaac. And that raises an age-old question. Why Isaac and not Ishmael? Both were Abraham's sons. Both shared his blood. But their futures would lead two very different peoples, each with a role to play in the unfolding story of humanity. As we journey through the series, we'll uncover how this single promise grew into a nation, how that nation fell and rose again, and how, according to both scripture and modern history, the ancient prophecies surrounding Israel are still being fulfilled in our time. So tonight, let's travel back, before there was a temple, before there was a city called Jerusalem, to a moment when the world itself was being reshaped after a great flood. Because to truly understand the miracle of Israel's rebirth, we have to start at the very beginning with Noah, his sons, and a blessing that changed the course of humanity forever. When we go back thousands of years to the dusty plains of the ancient Near East, the story of Israel doesn't begin with kings or battles. It begins with a promise. A single conversation beneath a starlit sky between a man named Abram and the God who called him out of obscurity. "Look up at the heavens," God said, "and count the stars, if you can. So shall your descendants be." That moment wasn't just about one family's destiny. It was the seed of a divine plan that would ripple through history itself. But to truly grasp the depth of that promise, we have to understand why God chose Abraham at all. According to ancient Jewish tradition, Abraham wasn't merely a wanderer seeking a homeland. He was a man who rejected the idolatry of his generation. He looked at the stars, the sun, and the moon, and realized they weren't gods, but creations of one greater being. That revelation changed everything. And from that awakening began a journey of faith that would define the identity of an entire nation. Yet, as every great story unfolds, the path of promise soon met with conflict. Abraham had two sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael, the firstborn through Hagar, and Isaac, born miraculously through Sarah in her old age. In the eyes of ancient custom, Ishmael should have inherited the blessing. But the narrative of Genesis takes a surprising turn. God declares that his covenant will continue through Isaac. Why? Many scholars believe it wasn't a rejection of Ishmael, but rather a divine pattern, where God chooses not by human order or strength, but by purpose. The same pattern repeats later. Jacob over Esau, Joseph over his brothers, David over his mightier siblings. It's as if the Creator constantly reminds humanity, "My ways are not your ways." But that decision set in motion a division that still echoes across time. The descendants of Ishmael became the tribes that would later populate the Arabian deserts, while through Isaac and later Jacob, the line of Israel was born. And so began a saga not just of faith, but of survival. Centuries passed. The children of Israel found themselves enslaved in Egypt, and it seemed as though the promise had been lost. But through Moses, the covenant was reignited. The God who once spoke under stars now thundered from Mount Sinai, declaring laws that would form the foundation of Western morality. From Egypt to Canaan, from the wilderness to the throne of David, Israel's journey was a story of divine choreography, moments of faithfulness intertwined with rebellion, restoration, and exile. But through every failure, every war, every exile, one theme persisted. God's covenant was unbreakable. Even when the Babylonian armies tore down the temple, prophets like Isaiah and Ezekiel spoke of a future return, of dry bones coming back to life, of a scattered people regathered to their ancient land. For centuries, that prophecy seemed impossible. And yet, here we are. The nation of Israel stands again in the heart of the Middle East. Its rebirth in 1948 seen by millions as a fulfillment of those very words spoken thousands of years ago. Coincidence? Or divine orchestration? Modern historians may explain it as politics, migration, or war. But for believers, it's far more than that. It's the living proof that God's word does not return void. Still, this story isn't just about one people. It's about the purpose behind them. The covenant given to Abraham was never meant to end with Israel. In Genesis 12, God says, "Through you, all nations of the earth shall be blessed." That line, simple yet profound, points to something bigger than geography, bigger than ethnicity. It's a reminder that the story of Israel was designed to carry a message of redemption to all humanity. And indeed, from Israel would come the prophets, the scriptures, and ultimately Jesus, the figure who Christians believe fulfilled the promise of blessing to the nations. It's here that faith and history intersect. It's here that theology and destiny meet. Because whether one looks through the eyes of faith or the lens of archaeology, the survival of Israel remains one of the most extraordinary narratives ever told. A people dispersed for nearly 2 millennia, yet never destroyed. As the late historian Arnold Toynbee once said, the Jews have proven the exception to every rule of history. Empires rise and fall, languages vanish, cultures fade, but Israel endures. And so, the question isn't just why Israel exists, but what for? Is it to remind humanity of divine faithfulness, or to prepare the world for something yet to come? Perhaps both, because the story isn't over yet. Even now, the land continues to stir with prophecy. Ancient scriptures speak of wars yet to come, of peace that will one day cover the earth like the waters cover the sea. Whether those prophecies will unfold in our lifetime remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. Every stone in Jerusalem, every olive tree in the hills of Judea, seems to whisper the same message first spoken under that starry sky. The covenant still stands. And so, as we stand at this point in history, thousands of years removed from that ancient promise beneath the desert stars, we find ourselves still asking, what does Israel's story mean for us today? Because whether you approach it as a believer or a historian, one truth remains. The survival of this nation is nothing short of extraordinary. No other people group has been scattered across continents, persecuted, exiled, and yet returned not once but twice to the very same land from which they began. It defies logic. It challenges the rules of history. And for many, it points directly back to the hand of the same God who once said, "I will bless those who bless you." But what's even more profound is how this small strip of land, no bigger than the state of New Jersey, continues to influence the moral, spiritual, and even political shape of the world. Think about it. 3 of the world's largest faiths trace their roots back to Abraham. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all look toward the same patriarch as their forefather faith. The promise spoken in Genesis wasn't just the birth of a nation. It was the birth of humanity's ongoing conversation with the divine. According to research published by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, nearly 90% of ancient prophecies related to Israel have already been fulfilled or partially fulfilled. Yet, there are still others that remain open, prophecies that speak of a time of peace, of spiritual awakening, of nations gathering in harmony. Whether one interprets these symbolically or literally, the very fact that such predictions have endured for millennia speaks to their timeless relevance. And here's the astonishing thing. Every time the world seems ready to forget Israel, history finds a way to bring it back into focus. Wars, peace accords, political debates, all somehow orbit around this small, ancient land. It's as if the stage of prophecy is being prepared once again. Some theologians suggest that we are living in what they call the prophetic convergence, a period where biblical patterns are re-emerging in our own time. From the regathering of the Jewish people to the rising tensions in Jerusalem, to the rediscovery of ancient sites once thought lost, each event seems to echo the scriptures like faint footsteps of destiny approaching. But perhaps the deeper message isn't about predicting the next event. Perhaps it's about understanding why these things matter. Because the story of Israel has always been more than history. It's a mirror. It reflects the human struggle to believe, to wander, to fall, and to be restored again. Every exile and every return mirrors our own spiritual journey. From separation to reconciliation, from chaos to redemption. The Apostle Paul once wrote that Israel's story was meant as an example, a living testimony of God's mercy and justice intertwined. Even in moments of rebellion, the covenant remained. Even in centuries of silence, the promise still whispered through generations. And now, as modern Israel thrives in science, technology, and culture, it also stands as a reminder that divine faithfulness transcends time. This isn't just about one people. It's about all people. The covenant made with Abraham was never meant to stay contained. It was meant to overflow, to reach you, me, and every person searching for hope in a chaotic world. When you look at the timeline of human civilization, from Babylon to Rome, from exile to independence, Israel is like a heartbeat that refuses to stop. Even when silenced by war, it pulses again with life. So perhaps the real miracle isn't just that Israel exists. It's that through its survival, we are reminded God keeps his word. And now, as we look toward the horizon of prophecy, toward a world still trembling with uncertainty, one question remains. If the promises made thousands of years ago have already come to pass before our eyes, what might be next? Maybe, just maybe, the same God who watched over Israel is still writing the story of humanity. And your story, even now. So as we close this chapter, take a moment to reflect. The same stars Abraham once gazed upon still shine tonight. The same promise still echoes through time. And the same hand that guided Israel through history still reaches out to guide you. If you found this journey enlightening, a new way of seeing ancient truth come alive, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us. Because there are still countless hidden stories within the Bible waiting to be uncovered. Mysteries buried in time that reveal how deeply God's fingerprints are woven into human history. Join us as we continue to explore the secrets of the scriptures, one story at a time.